pursue this justice. You might be asking, because we see it a lot of times these cases, go in various orders when they are, but this is an indication that the United States Attorney's Office stands along with us in the state of Minnesota, that when somebody and an evil individual decides to move this and create fear in our communities and commit evil acts, that we will pursue every possible charge that we can, from the state charges that you've learned about today to these federal charges that were discussed early on. And I'm grateful for the leadership of the United States Attorney's Office and the FBI for helping us move that forward so quickly in a coordinated approach. We do that because, as SAC Winston said, in situations like this, we have individuals that step up to serve their communities. They are elected officials across our state, and when an individual chooses to target them for their role in representing all of us, it's an incumbent upon all of us to put all the resources forward to hold that individual accountable, to seek justice, and to make sure that we are working together to show the community across Minnesota and the United States that political violence is never okay. We as a country are formed on the basis that we have political discourse and that we have debates ongoing on what we do, and that we elect people day in, day out to represent us. And when somebody tries to undermine that, it's important for all of us to hold that person accountable so that we can move forward as a country and have a system in place, that a representative government, and that we provide the protections for those individuals and their families moving forward. And so I'm thankful for these charges today to move this forward, and the great work of the United States Attorney's Office partnering with us to move forward on this. And with that, they'll take some questions.
Why is there a terrorism charge in there?
Why is there not a terrorism charge is the question. We brought the charges that we think are appropriate right now. Obviously, these crimes are about 48 hours old, so we have an ongoing investigation, and I can't comment as to what other charges may or may not be brought
in the future. Will you seek the death penalty?
Lou, thank you for the question. Will we seek the death penalty? It's too early to tell. That is one of the options for several of the charges, though.
Did Mr. Boelter have any assistance? Are you looking into whether he may have had assistance? And if he did, what are the potential consequences for anybody who may have assisted him either before or after these tragic shootings?
Our investigation remains ongoing in several areas, including whether or not he had anyone helping him, assisting him in either carrying out these attacks or fleeing from them. I can't comment on that at this time. There's nothing in the complaint suggesting that someone did, but the investigation is ongoing. In fact, it's just in its infancy. It's been 48 hours, most of which we are primarily focused on finding him.
He was running surveillance cameras in Minneapolis shortly after these crimes occurred. Do we know how he got from Brooklyn Park to Minneapolis? Was it on foot?
I don't know the answer to that.
Can you offer clarity about the state charges concurrent with the federal charges? How does that all work? Does this make null the state charges or take precedence over the state charges?
It does not nullify the state charges. They remain in place. Today he was brought into federal custody. He'll make his initial court appearance in federal court over in St. Paul at 1:30 Central Time this afternoon. And my expectation, based on prior cases, is the federal charges will be litigated first, but the state charges won't necessarily go anywhere.
Can you speak to why investigators believe he carried out this attack and for how long he may have been planning these attacks?
Well, it's pretty clear from the evidence that he's been planning these attacks for quite some time. There's voluminous writings, as you've seen in the reporting, that were found both in his car and his house about his planning, lists of names and individuals. In terms of the why, it's unclear.
Can you talk about this interaction with the New Hope police? What had law enforcement been told at that point? Were they aware to be on the lookout for a dark SUV that resembled a police vehicle?
I don't know. I can turn that. I don't know if one of my colleagues here know. I know that they had heard about the shooting of Senator Hoffman, and being the diligent law enforcement they were, knowing that they had elected officials living in their communities, they went out to do a wellness check. I don't know more than that.
What I can say, and as you can, I don't know the specifics of the question and what on that, whether it is. What I will tell you is that Hennepin County law enforcement working together at that time knew of that, and so as the different jurisdictions were on duty, some of them did proactive. As you've heard from Chief Bruley on this in Maple Grove, for example, or in Brooklyn Park, for example, they went out proactively to check on the status and the well-being, and that's how we encountered this and prevented additional attacks, which we believe certainly could have occurred from occurring. So we don't know the specifics on the New Hope as to what they were doing, but they were tracking the shooting that happened, and so several of them were being proactive and checking on various people that they knew resided in their city.
So did he shoot at the officers in Brooklyn, or the Brooklyn Park officers that responded? Did he shoot at them, or was he shooting into the house and they kind of like chased him into the house?
My understanding is it's unclear at the moment whether or not he shot at them. It's possible that he did. It's not clear. Obviously, it was a chaotic scene.
And was he wearing the mask when the New Hope officer interacted with him?
I believe he was, although I can't say for certain.
Is there reason to believe that there was plans to commit additional violence at, say, the protests that were going on that day?
I've not seen evidence of that. It's hard to say what his plan was. Obviously, he went to the homes of no less than 4 elected officials. He had a list of other elected officials, their home addresses. So,
to make sure that we connect the dots properly, could you name the other 2 officials?
you know, we can't at this time. It wouldn't surprise me if they publicly identify themselves, but it's not really my place to do that if they want to protect their own privacy.
What's your message to Minnesotans who may get a late night knock on the door from police if something's going on in their communities? I mean, can you just speak on that?
I'm going to let law enforcement handle that one. I don't know if someone,
Sure.
please.
Good morning, Police Chief Mark Bruley, Brooklyn Park Police Department. Great question. Like we sent out a message to our community when this first occurred is you always can call 911 and verify if the person at your door is a police officer. If they are a working police officer, they will be connected to a dispatch center that can validate that. So the first thing I would do is if you're concerned about it, is call 911. Obviously, there's a lot of different uniforms, and it's never wrong to do that.
Can you clarify the shooting stuff? Because we were told, I believe, that the person in custody did shoot at police at the Hortman residence. That's an important detail.
Yeah, so I'll answer this again. That's part of the ACT investigation, and I know there's been a lot that's going on, but as any time law enforcement uses deadly force, there's a walled-off separate investigation to examine that. At that time, I will tell you, we still work through. We are gathering evidence when we go through. This happened incredibly fast. What I can tell you is the police officers that were there on scene, that while they were assessing the situation, that the gunfire erupted. And we are still working through and reconstructing that crime scene. We've gathered all of the evidence related to that. And what was said there is that this is definitely happening very quickly. And we definitely know that he began shooting at the Hortmans, as will be detailed in this information, immediately once the officers were assessing the situation. Whether or not that the gunfire was returned at the officers or not, we are working through that, and we need to recreate the crime scene itself.
Did he make admissions when he was there?
But and I should say, I want to say, like, in that process, the gunfire was erupting in such a way all around that is partly why with the reasonable interpretation on some of those is where that came from initially.
Can you identify the potential motive here? It has been widely reported that the list, his hit list, contained names of people who are abortion rights supporters. And also, can you please release the names of the 2 other targeted victims who were fortunate to get away?
As I said, with respect to the other 2 potential victims, I think it's up to them whether they want to publicly identify themselves. As I said, it wouldn't surprise me if they do. They're elected officials, but that's their right. Obviously, they may have families and children and privacy interests that they need to sort through. So I'll let them do that. With respect to the potential motive, let me say this. There's been a lot of press coverage and speculation and discussion of a manifesto. I've seen nothing like a Unabomber-style manifesto in his writings. He had many, many notebooks full of plans, lists of names, surveillance, efforts that he took to surveil and locate the home addresses and family members' relationships with these elected officials. But I have not seen anything involving some sort of political screed or manifesto that would clearly identify what motivated him. Obviously, his primary motive was to go out and murder people. Now, they were all elected officials. They were all Democrats. Beyond that, I think it's just way too speculative for anyone that's reviewed these materials to know and to say what was motivating him in terms of ideology or specific issues. There's a lot of...
Or abortion rights supporters?
There were some abortion rights supporters, I believe, on the list. But again, there was dozens and dozens and dozens of names on, hundreds of pages of documents that were recovered with his writings on them.
Did he confess and give more details after he was apprehended last night?
I'm not going to comment on that at this time.
Can you talk about how long this pre-planning and